A handful of Tom and Jerry creative writings. Number 1. Thomas is cooking dinner for his owner Grandma. He is the world's worst cook in the world. Grandma patiently waits for the dinner in the dining room. Thomas serves dinner. He has created some questionable things. Grandma tries to eat it, but it doesn't taste that well. Thomas starts to cry because he spent 2 hours cooking to surprise Grandma for her 70th birthday. Thomas brings out dessert, and sings happy birthday to Grandma. Number 2. After Thomas got expelled from school for breaking federal crimes, her owner Grandma was fuming. When she picked him up, the car ride was full of no words. After the ride, Thomas was punished for his crimes. Grandma unplugged Thomas's Xbox and she went to the roof. Grandma hurled it into the pool and it sank to the bottom and broke. Thomas rescued the Xbox and tries to use it. All attempts ended in failure. Thomas got payback by ripping Grandma's phone apart. But this ended up in Thomas being put up for adoption and no one adopted him because Thomas was a menace to society for doing unspeakable things. The end. Number 3. After Thomas got put up for adoption, it took 48 years for him to be adopted. The owner is called Homer Simpson. Homer adopted Thomas. The cat was brought home and was ordered to get rid of Jerry the mouse. Thomas set up multiple traps and a Rube Goldberg machine. Unfortunately, Thomas ran into the traps and was severely injured. But 2.3 seconds later, due to cartoon logic, he was magically back to normal. Thomas made 20 more traps but ran into them also. Homer decided to put him back up for adoption. This time no one adopted him. 54 years later he kicked the bucket and no one came to his funeral because he is a menace to the earth. In the underworld he begged Mr. Burns, the ruler of the underworld. However, Mr. Burns declined the offer of him coming back to life. He couldn't come back to life because he committed several federal crimes from part 1. Number 4. The Queen called Grandma and her army of cat clones called Thomas prepared for a massive battle against the mice called Jerry. The Thomas army fought very little and were eliminated in under 2 hours. Grandma was taken away and was forced to do yard work for the rest of her life. When she was 130 years old she screamed 18+ words for 3 hours straight, then was taken away to the dungeon and she was locked up to never be seen again. She passed on at the young age of 187 years old. Number 5. Tom and Jerry the play. Thomas, I'm going to be eliminated. Please help me teammates. Grandma, Thomas. Lower your voice for Pete's sake. I can barely think straight. Thomas, no. I got eliminated. Narrator, Thomas hurls his controller to the TV and the TV falls over. Grandma, what on earth was that? Thomas, ooh, my Xbox fell down. Narrator, Grandma cooks dinner. Grandma, Thomas, get your behind downstairs for dinner. Thomas, I am not coming down for bloody dinner. Narrator, Grandma runs upstairs and pulls Thomas into the kitchen. Grandma, eat the burgers. Thomas, no. Grandma, yes. Narrator, 15 minutes of arguing later. Thomas, I had enough of your behavior. You are grounded for a century. Grandma, how dare you speak to your owner like that? You're getting a punishment day. Thomas, I am dead. Number 6. Thomas was on the shore. He was sleeping and dreaming about Fortnite. Thomas was peacefully sleeping when a 20-foot wave dragged him and his friend Butch to the sea. Thomas woke up on a deserted island. He and Butch made a survival shelter skyscraper and lived there until another 20-foot wave knocked down the skyscraper. The two cats got in the lifeboat and got no supplies because of how dim-witted they are. A few days later Butch turned against Thomas. Butch tackled Thomas. Unfortunately their nails have not been trimmed in over 20 years. Then a rescue boat came. Once on the rescue boat everyone was scared of the fight. Then clouds formed and the cats were about to be drenched. Then the rain started and everyone was relieved. Expect the cats on the boat. Number 7. Thomas the cat ran outside and dragged her inside. Thomas locked the door and dragged the girl to the kitchen. The entire Tom and Jerry cast came out and yelled surprise. Soon the girl ran but got lost in the corn maze on the 29th floor. Then Spike the bulldog captured her and they had a celebration for it being 6:36 p.m. on Halloween night. They ripped up the corn maze and the house collapsed. Soon they all ran and stole all the neighbors' candy and threw it off a cliff. Then they parachuted off the cliff with parachutes made of sausages. They all fell and healed 2 seconds later. After that they flew out of the cave and rode off to the moon and camped there forever. Number 8. Pappy and Graham. It is your turn to pay. So Pappy got Thomas the cat, ran home and dragged Thomas by the tail. Thomas dug his nails into the ground so he wouldn't be cooked and transformed into tins of dog food. Once back at the castle, Pappy put Thomas into the cannon and launched Thomas to the stage. He slammed into the wall and face planted into a pool of piranhas. He escaped and was turned into a can of dog food. He was put on sale and sold out in 3 seconds flat. Number 9. Thomas, Gar. Grandma, lower your voice cat. Thomas, no. Grandma, yes. Narrator, 30 hours of back and forth arguing. Grandma, get downstairs, the dinner is rock hard. Thomas, what are we eating? Grandma, 200 pounds of meat that has been left out for 30 hours. Thomas, I think I am going to be sick. Grandma, if you're sick you will have to clean it up. Thomas, capital N, capital O, capital O, capital O. Ma, quiet. The psycho neighbors will call the police. Thomas, I don't care. Narrator, Thomas mimics Grandma. Grandma, what did you just say? Narrator, Grandma screamed so loud the entire house collapsed. Comic book guy, worst play ever. Number 10. crumble, to rip apart. Mammy called for Thomas to get downstairs. Thomas dragged himself down the stairs. He got up and tripped on an ant. He fell down the stairs and broke his back. 1 second later he was cured due to cartoon logic. Mammy dragged Thomas to the kitchen for breakfast. Thomas saw they were having cheeseburgers for breakfast. Thomas exploded in anger and crumbled the burgers to dust. He then screamed in horror and hijacked Mammy's Lamborghini number 11. The coyote got the ball. He ran down the field. He was run over by Thomas. A few seconds later Coyote and Thomas got into a tirade. The teacher stopped the fight and got Thomas and Coyote expelled. Then the road runner ran past and Coyote was on his way. Then the teacher dragged Thomas by the tail to her car. She drove him home. Once home her master grounded him for 1 Googleplex to the power of Googleplex years. Thomas screamed in anger and his head exploded due to cartoon logic number 11. The mouse was super sneaky. He was named Jerry, of course. Then the owner of the house Mammy Two Shoes came out and she screamed in horror. Mammy called for her mouse catcher. Thomas ran downstairs as quick as a flash. Mammy instructed the cat to eliminate the mouse. Thomas set up 20 traps in the house. Then the mouse started running. Thomas chased the mouse. Thomas ran into every single trap because he always runs into his traps. Mammy then threw Thomas into the basement and she locked the door. 3 years later, Thomas was let out. Mammy then dragged Thomas outside. Then she, number 12. Soon the house began shaking. Soon a small and giant figure flew past her. Soon crashing sounds run throughout the house. Then the 2 figures ran into the table. The figures were grey and brown. Soon Nandy heard her explosion of screaming. Her mother picked up the figures and dragged them by their tails. The figures screamed in horror and they ran away. Soon the house began trembling yet again. Crashing sounds were coming from the attic. Soon Nanny and her mother went up to the attic and found you-know-who causing trouble. Then you-know-who ran out of the window never to be seen again. Number 13. Then the figures ran down the street. Soon the small figure stole a car and chased down the larger figure. Soon the chase was on. The larger figure was run over and flattened like a pancake. Soon the figure got up and they inflated back to normal. Soon a massive war broke out. Hundreds of cats and mice went to war with each other. Years of brutal war caused the cats to win. Soon the 2 figures got into a rap battle to the death. What will happen next? Well, find out next week. Number 14. The figures were in a rap battle and they got into a physical fight. They fought and sang like no one ever has. Then a massive crowd formed, as a dust cloud formed around the figures. Soon their master broke up the fight. The master dragged the cat and mouse back home, and the master screamed into 10 megaphones. A massive boom rang throughout the house, shattering everything made of glass. The house shook and soon it collapsed. Then the cat and mouse duo teamed up to take all the superheroes in the world. What happens next? Find out next week. Number 15. Thomas and Grandma were going out to buy a Christmas tree. They arrive at the tree shop and they purchase a 30-foot tall tree. Once home, Grandma and Thomas decorate it with miles of lights and beads. They put on 12,000 ornaments. Grandma goes to her bed for a nap. 20 minutes later Thomas's friend Butch arrives. Butch and Thomas take out saws and they destroy the tree. Grandma wakes up and she sees the cats breaking the tree. Grandma breathes in and she roars like Godzilla. Thomas runs away but Grandma catches the 2 cats. Grandma gets out some rusted up tools from 120 years ago. The next scene is so gruesome and heart-inducing mayhem I can't explain it or else you would have nightmares for life. Number 16. Thomas and Grandma packed up for the 30-year-long trip to Aruba. 2 hours later they arrived via teleporter. The weather is very hot and it is 2000% humid. Grandma saw a statue of a rectangle on top of a frozen image of 77 rats. Grandma and Thomas went to purchase some snow cones for themselves, but they melted in a matter of seconds. Grandma and Thomas went to a museum to learn about the oppressive countries of the world. Soon they went home and they unpacked. Then all was peaceful until he arrived. Find out soon. No spoilers until after break. Number 17. Thomas is sleeping in the kitchen. Grandma walks in with a mallet. She aims the mallet and the gong explodes to dust. Thomas screams in anger and he barks at Grandma. Grandma takes out a Big Mac and she shoves it down the food disposal. Killer comes along and he takes out a water squirter. Killer squirts Thomas with gallons of pepper spray. Thomas screams in pain and he rips his whiskers off in anger. Thomas runs after Killer and he, number 18. Thomas was doing math problems while on a trip to Aruba. Soon the airplane shook like it was in the middle of an earthquake. Thomas looked out the window and he saw a sharknado. Thomas grabbed several bags of tomatoes for protection. He took the tomatoes out and launched them at the sharknado. The sharknado blew up and the passengers celebrated his bravery. Soon he was put into a bucket on cement and he was wrapped up into a trash bag. A few weeks later Kyle woke up with his pet Jerry. Soon Kyle's birthday party began. He got a present. The present was the trash bag wrapped Thomas in a bucket of cement. The end. Number 19. Butch, what should we eat for lunch? Thomas, I do not know. Butch, okay. Thomas, fine. Butch, I know what. Thomas, what? Butch, we should have Waffle Hut for lunch. Thomas, that is just a rip-off of Pizza Hut. Butch, I do not care. I want Waffle Hut for lunch and that is final. Thomas, okay. Butch, so let's go to the Waffle Hut for lunch. Thomas, yum. Butch, our break is in 3 hours. Thomas, okay. Butch, I want Waffle Hut right now. I want Waffle Hut right now. Number 20. Thomas the cat and Jerry the mouse are in a toothpaste and butter store up to their shenanigans. Thomas is raging like a maniac as he chases Jerry. Jerry is a villain of Thomas because they have been at war for decades. Thomas sets up a trap and Jerry manages to trick Thomas. Thomas runs into his own trap. Thomas screams and his best friend Butch arrives. Butch catches Jerry and Butch eliminates Jerry. Thomas says thank you and the cats run off into the sunlight never to be seen again. Number 21. Thomas is sleeping in the kitchen. Grandma walks into the kitchen with a gong and a mallet. Grandma bangs the gong so hard the gong shatters to dust. Thomas wakes up and he eats deep-fried oatmeal for dinner. A few hours later Thomas is screaming at his teammates on Call of Duty. Thomas gets eliminated and he destroys his entire bedroom in anger. Grandma walks up the stairs when she hears explosions. Thomas is lighting up fireworks in his bedroom. Grandma walks up the stairs and she falls down the stairs because a massive explosion shook the entire house. Grandma then bolts up the stairs and she kicks the bedroom door down. The next scene is so gruesome if I can't explain it or else you would get nightmares for life. Number 22. Grandma was chasing Thomas because he got expelled from school for committing tax evasion against the Russian government on a school computer. Thomas runs into the school's library. A few seconds later Thomas crashes into the railing post. A second later Thomas tumbles headfirst down 20 flights of stairs. Thomas reaches the first floor of the library and he grabs several documents of his permanent record. He eats them all and he heard a noisy classmate screaming like a god. Thomas gets on a skateboard shaped like a tomato and he gets on public transport in the library. A day later Thomas listens to the weather report on the radio and he freaks out and he. Number 23. Thomas walked to the goat farm and he found a goat with its tongue out. Thomas has a pile of tin cans. Thomas fed the tin cans to the goat because he thought goats could eat tin cans because he watches cartoons. The goat got up and pushed Thomas into a pile of manure. Thomas ran away smelling like manure. Thomas had to take a 300-minute shower just to get the smell out and he wasted all the water in the house.